After 3 years of injustice, her incredible truth is revealed. Prepare for an inspiring transformation that could change everything. Rachel stood in front of the old Maplewood Bank, once a place she trusted like family. The whispers of accusation cut through her like the sharp wind that swept across the Midwest. "Fraud," they said. "She stole from us." The pain of those words sank deep as the love she had for her 2 children, whom she worked tirelessly to support. She had served her country, laid her life on the line, yet here she was, fighting to prove her innocence in a community that once celebrated her. With every diner shift and retail job, Rachel pushed against the tide of exhaustion to give her kids the life they deserved. In the warm glow of evening, the smell of burgers frying and the laughter of diners brought fleeting comfort. But betrayal lingered, stinging like an open wound. The kids would often ask, "Mommy, why are people mean?" And she'd smile through tears, telling them it would all be okay. But would it? The most painful rift formed between her and her father, a decorated veteran like her. He watched from afar, his disappointment casting shadows. "You made mistakes, Rachel," he'd say. The words echoed in her heart, dulling the hope that flickered within her. As their conversations turned into arguments, she felt the fabric of their bond tearing apart at the seams, yet in her darkest moments, she found strength in her neighbors. Miss Henderson, with her homemade apple pie, and the kids down the street who always offered a friendly wave, showed her the heart of Maplewood still beat strong. Their kindness felt like a warm embrace, igniting something fierce within her. Everything shifted one fateful night. Just as she was about to cry herself to sleep, she stumbled upon incriminating evidence against the bank. Hidden documents revealing corruption. A pulse raced in her chest, and adrenaline flooded her veins. This was her chance. She could fight back. This fight wasn't just for her, it was for everyone who had felt the weight of unfairness. The night of the town hall meeting loomed like a heavy storm cloud. She could envision every face in the room: friends, former supporters turned skeptics, family. All of Maplewood gathered for a cause that felt bigger than her burdens. Would they believe her? Would they fight alongside her? As she stood at the podium, her voice trembled initially but then strengthened. She shared her journey with raw honesty, urging the townsfolk to recognize the cracks in a flawed system that too often favored those in power. "We deserve justice," she cried, her heart racing as the crowd began to murmur in agreement, their expressions shifting from disbelief to determination. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Rachel concluded her heart-wrenching tale, a profound silence fell across the room. From the back, her father watched with an altered perspective, shaken by the strength in her vulnerability. Perhaps he had been mistaken. Perhaps their past didn't have to dictate their future, but before Rachel could celebrate her small victory, a shock wave hit the room. A revelation about her father's past threatened to erupt, leaving her standing at an emotional precipice. What would this mean for their relationship? Would they finally heal together, or would this revelation pull them apart forever? The answer felt just out of reach, hanging in the air with a blend of hope and uncertainty. Rachel's heart raced as she sensed the weight of the room shift. Whispers danced through the crowd, fueled by the tension that hung thick in the air. Her father's gaze bore into her, revealing a mix of emotions: pride tangled with pain, love intertwined with disappointment. Please, just let it be, she thought, remembering all the times she had fought for understanding between them. Damar Thompson, the town's mayor, stood up, attempting to regain control. Let us keep this civil, he urged, though Rachel could see the cracks in his composed facade. It's important we hear the truth. But her mind was swirling, trapped in a whirlwind of fears and possibilities. What did this revelation mean? Would it turn her father's already fragile faith against her further? And then, standing beside her at the podium, her best friend, Lucy, leaned in. "You've got this, Rach," she whispered, giving Rachel's arm a comforting squeeze. Rachel managed a shaky smile, feeling a flicker of strength from Lucy's support. She took a deep breath, letting the air fill her lungs. Whatever came next, she was determined to face it head-on. "About my father," she began, her voice returning its steadiness, even as her insides churned. "I know there are things in our past that stain our present, but the heart of a family can endure." She locked eyes with her father. "We all have secrets. Some bring shame, others, truths that can heal." She hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. Before she could continue, she heard Miss Henderson shout from the back, "What is it, Rachel? We're all family here." Rachel met the eyes of her neighbors, feeling their encouragement like a lifeline. "I found evidence of wrongdoing at the bank, but my father—" The words caught in her throat as she glanced at him again. "He has a history with corruption too." Gasps rang out. Shock painted the faces around her, a storm of confusion. Her father shifted uncomfortably, and in that moment, his vulnerability was laid bare, as if all his armor had slipped away. Had the truth always been lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to surface? "You knew about this, didn't you, Dad?" she pressed, longing for him to either confirm or deny it. "This isn't just my fight anymore, it's ours. We can face this together." The silence deepened, yet in it, she sensed a crack forming in the rigid walls of their relationship. She could almost hear her father's heart thudding in rhythm with hers. What would it take for him to join her in this fight? To believe in her, the same way she believed in them both? "Rachel!" Someone yelled from the back, pulling her focus. "If you think you can just drag his past into this, you don't know what you're doing." It was Sarah, someone who once considered Rachel a close friend. Her words felt like a slap. Rachel's resolve wobbled, but she stood firm, a wave of fierce community spirit swelled around her, urging her on. "I can't change the past, but I can change our future." Rachel called back, lifting her chin defiantly. "We deserve to move forward, to live in truth and fairness." She felt it then, the tide of emotions in the room starting to shift. Heads nodded, voices murmured in agreement, but would it be enough? Would they band together, or would fear keep them in chains? Her father took a step forward, breaths heavy with unspoken regret. As his lips parted to form the first words, Rachel held her breath, suspended in that fragile moment. What would he say? Would it bridge the chasm of uncertainty between them, or would it lead them to deeper divides? The crowd leaned forward, eyes wide with anticipation. Rachel's heart drummed wildly against her ribs, her future hanging by a thread. She could barely withstand the tension, knowing that whatever came next, everything could change in an instant. "Rachel, I need you to understand," her father finally said, the weight of his years heavy in his tone. Would it be an apology, or a confession? Rachel's pulse raced, teetering on the edge of hope and fear. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about them all. And as the air crackled with possibility, she knew one thing was certain: the fight was just beginning. Rachel's breath caught as she awaited her father's words, the tension radiating through the crowd. In that moment, the air felt thick with layers of history, unspoken pain, and a flicker of hope. Her father's face was a storm of emotions, the guilt riding high. "Rachel," he began, his voice low and rough, "I never wanted any of this for you. I thought I could shield you from the truth." He looked down, shame casting a shadow across his features. "But in doing so, I was only pushing you away." The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling like wind over a field. Faces connected by whispers of solidarity turned towards Rachel, their eyes wide, some in disbelief, others ready to support her. She could feel Lucy's hand squeeze her arm tighter, anchoring her. "But it's not just my truth," Rachel interjected. "It's about the lies that were built to protect us. What good is protection if it suffocates us? We can no longer hide." "That's not what people do," Sarah retorted from the back, her frustration brimming. They protect each other. They keep the dirty laundry inside. Rachel raised her eyes to meet Sarah's fierce glare. And what does that protect us from? The shame? The pain? We need to face it together. The conviction in Rachel's voice hung in the air like a prayer, searching for an answer. Her father seemed to shrink back at the onslaught of emotions, but she could see a flicker of comprehension start to dawn in his eyes. You're right, Rachel. I was afraid. I thought if I hid my past, it would protect you. But I see now that keeping these secrets has only hurt us. At that moment, silence enveloped the room, deep and heavy. Rachel's heart sank, yet hope flickered like a candle. If you're willing to stand with me, she said gently, we can confront this together. Her father hesitated, his gaze flitting over the crowd, the weight of their collective expectations pressing down on him. Then, slowly, he took a step closer to the podium. I've made mistakes, and I can't erase them. But I'm here, Rachel. I want to be a part of the solution, not just the problem. A ripple of unexpected applause broke the silence, echoing off the walls. People were nodding, murmuring encouragement. The tension that had once felt like chains began to loosen, replaced by a tentative unity. Let us take this to the bank, Miss Henderson offered, her tone warm and bold. We need transparency. If something's wrong, we write it. Right, Sarah replied, her tone more earnest. For the community. We owe it to everyone affected. Rachel felt the weight of doubt in her stomach ease just a fraction. Could they actually band together? She looked at her father, who was staring at the crowd with newfound resolve. His forehead was creased, and that glimmer of pride began to shine through. What can we do? Lucy chimed in, her spirit infectious. Rachel inhaled deeply, pulse racing. This was the turning point. We start with the truth. We must demand accountability from those in charge. We talk to the bank, speak at town meetings, and share our stories. The people around her nodded, a wave of determination washing over them. Rachel could feel it, a shared resolve knitting them together. But just then, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The doors of the town hall slammed open, revealing her mother stumbling through, breathless. I knew I had to come, she gasped, eyes wide as she scanned the scene. What have I missed? Rachel's heart raced again, but this time with a mix of excitement and fear. This was a whole new layer to unravel. What secrets did her mother hold? Could this be the final catalyst for change? As the room buzzed with whispers, Rachel's pulse quickened. This was just the beginning of the fight ahead. She could feel it in her bones. What was her mother about to reveal? Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at her mother, breathless and disheveled. The tension in the room shifted, her mother's presence igniting a new energy among the crowd. It felt as if the air crackled with anticipation, secrets dancing just out of reach. Mom, Rachel breathed, her voice a mix of relief and apprehension. You're here. What is going on? Her mother seemed to take a moment, gathering her thoughts like a jigsaw puzzle she was desperate to complete. I didn't know how to tell you, she stammered, eyes shimmering with urgency. But it's time the truth came out. Rachel felt her stomach twist. What truth? What had been brewing under the surface all these years? I've kept something from you, her mother continued, stepping closer to the podium, her voice trembling. There's so much you don't know about our family's past, the real reason why we've been struggling, hiding. What do you mean? Rachel pressed, sensing the crowd leaning in, drawn by the energy. Lucy squeezed her arm again, a silent show of support. Her mother locked eyes with her, a depth of emotion swirling in her gaze. Your father wasn't the only one trying to protect you. There were choices I made that led us down this path. Things I buried deep because I was afraid it would change everything. The murmurs surged through the crowd. Rachel felt the eyes of their community on them, each person pulling at the thread of their shared story, as if they were all part of this intricate web. What choices, Mom? Rachel's voice rose with newfound resolve. It was a question that had to be asked, even if her heart ached at the possibilities. Her mother exhaled sharply. We lost everything because of a gamble I made. An investment that went wrong. I thought I could fix it before you knew. I thought it was the right decision. The pain etched on her face was palpable, a heavy burden finally being unveiled. By the time I realized how wrong I was, it was too late. Rachel's chest tightened, her mind racing. Wait, you mean the bank, everything? This financial mess, it started with you? Yes. Her mother exclaimed, voice catching. I took out loans that I couldn't repay, believing I could turn it around. I thought if I could just keep it from you and your father, I could protect you both. But here we are. Hiding never works, does it? The silence that followed her admission stretched, thick and suffocating. Rachel's breath hitched, fresh wounds opened by this revelation. Her mother had been carrying this weight alone, suffocated by guilt, yet, at the same time, something snapped into focus. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, seeing the faces of friends and neighbors, their expressions shifting from surprise to an unmistakable sense of understanding. They were all grappling with their own forms of hidden truths, just like her family. Mom, Rachel said, her voice steadier now. This is hard, but it's not over. We can make a difference, but we have to pull together, all of us. Your truth, we need to face it. The community needs to hear it. Her mother nodded, eyes brimming with unshed tears. You're right. We stand together. The crowd erupted into applause, and Rachel felt the wave of support wash over her, an embrace of shared vulnerability. But amid the clapping and the murmured encouragement, another question tugged at Rachel's mind. But how much longer can we keep all this from those in charge? What happens when our truths collide with the power they hold? Just then, a voice broke through from the back, a familiar tone tinged with uncertainty. What if they don't listen? It was Sarah, her chest heaving, eyes stormy with worry. Rachel turned towards her, acknowledging the hesitation lurking in the room. Then we make them listen. This is just the beginning, isn't it? As the energy swirled around them like a cyclone of possibility, Rachel felt a fierce resolve rising within her. But as her gaze met her mother's, the reality of the battle ahead loomed like a shadow. What if they were stepping into a fight they couldn't win? As the applause faded, every heartbeat rang. With the unspoken question, would they find strength in honesty, or would the truth burn them all? Rachel felt a damp chill creep across her skin as the applause faded, leaving an echo of uncertainty in the air. Even surrounded by supportive faces, the weight of her mother's revelation hung heavy, a dense fog of hidden truths and looming battles. She took a deep breath, trying to gather her scattered thoughts. Let us talk about what we're going to do next, she said, her voice cutting through the lingering applause. The crowd quieted, their attention focused on the pair at the front. Rachel's heart raced. This was the moment she had envisioned, a chance to rally her community. She glanced at her mother's face, a mixture of relief and fear flickering in her eyes. Rachel felt an urge to protect her, but equally, she knew they were in this together. It starts with us reaching out, Rachel declared. Let us organize a meeting for everyone to come together, to share their stories. There are so many families dealing with the same struggles. We can become a united front. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Lucy stepped forward, her face bright with determination. We can have a community gathering. People need to feel they're not alone. We can share resources and help each other. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, Rachel's eyes roamed over the room. She saw Sarah nodding, frowning slightly, pushed by concern. Rachel approached her, sensing the weight of her hesitation. What's on your mind? Sarah shook her head and responded softly, I just worry, what if they retaliate? You know the banks are powerful. What if they come after us? This feels like a lot. Rachel swallowed hard. Her own fears echoed in Sarah's words, but deep down, she knew retreat was not an option. But if we don't speak out, they'll keep doing what they want. Hiding has only hurt us. Isn't it time to take a stand? Maybe you're right, Sarah conceded, though doubt clouded her brow. As Rachel stood back, her mother joined her, brushing her fingers gently against Rachel's arm. You're stronger than I ever was, sweetheart. It takes courage to face this. If we don't change now, we'll be stuck in this cycle forever. Rachel nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude and fear. The stakes felt higher than ever. Could they really change things? The crowd around them began to buzz once more, voices merging into a symphony of hope and urgency. They exchanged ideas with increasing intensity. It was as if the room buzzed with an electric current. Days, weeks of hidden truths now fought to break free. Rachel watched as the momentum built. It was thrilling and terrifying at the same time. People began to share their own stories of struggles tied to banks, bad loans, and betrayal. Emotions spilled over: anger, frustration, but also hope. In the midst of this gathering storm, Rachel smiled as hands shot up in the air, plans forming. Great idea, someone called out. Let's make posters to raise awareness. Invite the local news. Show them how powerful we are, another shouted. Let us not just be heard, let us be seen. With each voice that chimed in, Rachel felt her confidence swell. But in the back of her mind, nagging doubts whispered what would happen when they gained attention. Would the bank strike back viciously? The questions loomed dark and heavy, but she had to push past them. As the group began discussing logistics, Rachel noticed her mother standing silently, tears glistening as if she were remembering a painful history. Rachel stepped toward her, the noise fading, focusing solely on her mother. We're going to make this right, Mom, she assured, her voice low but urgent. We won't let this finish us. But even as the words left her lips, the ghost of uncertainty lingered. As they began to move toward action, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing above them, threatening to spill over at any moment. Would their efforts awaken the sleeping giant? Would true consequences follow? Let us plan to meet again tomorrow, she said, trying to mask her anxiety with resolve. Then we'll take a stand. Yet, in that moment of bravery, the question loomed in her mind, would they be ready for what lay ahead? Rachel awoke the next morning with a jolt, sunlight streaming through her window like a harbinger of possibility. But as the rays warmed her skin, they couldn't banish the tightness in her chest. Today was the day they would gather again, and she could feel the weight of their shared courage pressing down on her. It was invigorating yet terrifying. She dressed quickly, her mind racing with everything they needed to accomplish. Each step down the hall felt heavier than the last. As she entered the kitchen, the smell of coffee filled the air, pulling her back into the moment. Her mother stood at the counter, stirring a pot of oatmeal, her face etched with fatigue yet glowing with determination. Are you ready for today? Rachel asked, trying to gauge her mother's pulse. I don't know, honey, her mother replied, glancing over her shoulder. It feels bigger than I imagined. Rachel poured a cup of coffee, letting the warmth seep into her palms. I know it's a lot. But we can't back down now. This is our chance. They talked through breakfast, discussing ideas and refining their plans. The doorbell rang, breaking their reverie. When Rachel opened the door, she found Sarah standing there, her expression a mix of anxiety and resolve. Hey, Rachel said, stepping aside. Are you ready? Sort of, Sarah replied, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. I've been thinking, what if we don't get the turnout we need? What if people aren't brave enough to stand out? Rachel took a breath, trying to dispel Sarah's doubts. Every journey starts small. It's about making the first step. Besides, they need a spark, and that spark is us. Sarah nodded slowly, but her eyes still betrayed her unease. Together, they made their way to the community center, their steps synchronizing with an unspoken rhythm of hope and fear. Upon arriving, Rachel's heart raced as she stepped into the hall. The room was buzzing with conversation, filled with familiar faces of friends and allies. Yet, as she scanned the crowd, a chilling thought clawed at her. What if it wasn't enough? Slowly, people began to take their seats. Rachel could hear their whispers of concern and anticipation. She climbed onto the stage, her palms sweaty as she grabbed the microphone. The world around her became a blur, leaving only her heartbeat reverberating in her ears. "Thank you for coming today," she started, her voice wavering before finding its steadiness. "We're here because we can no longer stay silent. Together, we can rise up and demand what is rightfully ours." A wave of applause erupted, and Rachel took a breath of relief, bolstered by the sound. She thought of her mother, the battles they had fought, and the struggles waiting ahead. As she spoke, people began to respond, sharing their own experiences, tears mixing with anger. The air buzzed with energy, it felt electric. But amidst that powerful surge, Rachel's eye caught a figure lingering at the back of the room. A face she recognized. Someone she had hoped was done with their shadows. The very man who had been her family's biggest adversary, the banker who had caused so much turmoil in their lives. Her breath hitched, and for a moment, everything else faded. What was he doing here? Was this what they had awakened? Dread crawled along her spine. "Excuse me," Rachel's voice faltered, but she pushed through the sudden weight of fear. "Can we help you?" The murmurs of the crowd seemed to swallow her words. All eyes turned to the man, curiosity mixed with anxiety. Was he there to intimidate them, to silence their efforts once and for all? She felt the atmosphere shift as he spoke, and the weight of uncertainty returned as the room held its breath. "What I have to say," he started, his tone ambiguous, "might surprise you all." In that moment, Rachel realized their fight had only just begun, and the answers she sought were closer than she ever imagined. But as the confrontation brewed, she couldn't shake the question: would they be able to push through the turmoil, or would they fall victim to the very system they aimed to confront? The man's gaze swept over the room, lingering on Rachel, as if he could sense the surge of tension rippling through the crowd. "I know many of you remember what I've done, the choice I made that affected your lives." He paused, the flicker of regret crossing his face just briefly. "But today, I stand before you not as an adversary, but as someone willing to lay my cards on the table." A murmur swept through the audience, a chain of disbelief and skepticism. Rachel's heart pounded louder, she knew this moment could shift everything. Questions raced through her mind. What could he possibly say that would change their perception? Was he really going to take responsibility for his actions? 3 years ago, when my decisions led to the foreclosure of homes and dreams, I thought I was acting in the name of progress, the man continued, lowering his voice. But I watched lives crumble, including yours. It haunted me. Rachel felt her breath hitch again, caught between anger and curiosity. Could he be sincere? Or was this just another ploy to manipulate their hope? "Today," he said, gaining confidence, "I want to propose a plan, a way to restore what was taken. I believe together we can establish a fund dedicated to helping those who lost their homes. I want to give back." Gasps filled the space, disbelief and confusion swimming in every eye. Rachel exchanged glances with Sarah, who looked just as torn. Could this be genuine? "And I have a team of lawyers ready to support those who wish to fight back." "I know it's hard to trust me," he admitted, "but you all deserve a second chance. I didn't expect to feel this way, but seeing you band together it changed my heart." The uncertainty in the room grew palpable. Some nodded in cautious agreement, while others stewed in anger. Rachel's mind raced at the implications of his words. This could be the breakthrough they so desperately needed, but could they trust a man who had caused them so much pain? "After all, we're not so different," he concluded. "You crave safety and stability just as I once did. I was blinded by ambition, but now I see what really matters: community and support." Rachel stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "You expect us to believe this change? You hurt our families. How can we rely on someone who has caused such deep wounds?" The man looked pained, his shoulders sagging under her words. You're right to question me. I want the same answer. It's why I'm here, in front of you all, to put myself on the line. Her heart second-guessed itself. Was he truly ready to make amends? Could he offer real reparations to families that had suffered? The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes darting between Rachel and the man, weighing trust against betrayal. She glanced back at her mother, whose face showed both hope and hesitation. Before she could process her feelings or devise a response, another voice shouted from the back, cutting through the tension. Or is this just another trap to keep us quiet? Rachel's stomach dropped. Could this moment unravel everything? Heart racing, she sensed the tide was beginning to turn. People were leaning forward, fascinated yet unsure, caught in a whirlwind of rebellion and the possibility of change, and just as the atmosphere thickened with possibilities, that nagging question crept into Rachel's mind again: what if this truly was a moment of transformation, or a last-ditch effort to silence them? The possibility of redemption hung in the air, shimmering in its fragility. Would Rachel find the courage to embrace it or knock it down before it could even begin? As murmurs echoed around her, she felt the weight of the moment bearing down, and a new question formed in her heart: could she lead this community toward forgiveness, or would the shadows of resentment forever cloud their future? The man stood there, his face a mix of desperation and expectation. The room was heavy with silence, each pulsating heartbeat echoing the uncertainty swirling in the air. Rachel's mind reeled. She could sense the weight of the crowd's collective disbelief pressing down on her. "Folks," the man said, raising his voice, "I know it feels like I'm asking you to turn the other cheek. But I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm offering a path forward. I want to earn your trust back." Rachel could feel her chest tighten. Trust was a fragile thing, like a glass figurine on the edge of a table. With the wrong move, it could shatter completely. Around her, heads shook and brows furrowed. For every person who wanted to lean in and believe, there were several others clenching their jaws, unwilling to let go of their anger. "Just words," someone shouted from the back. "We need action, not empty promises." The accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Rachel's heart raced again. She stumbled over her own thoughts, trying to form a response. What did they need to hear? Was this man truly changed, or had his redemption arc just begun? "Let me show you," he said, his voice now softer, almost pleading. "Together, we can make changes to the very system that failed you all. I have been in talks with city officials. Let us negotiate new policies. Make them accountable. This isn't simply about money, it's about legacy, a legacy I hope we can build together." Rachel felt a flicker of something beneath her distrust. Could hope be stirred from such a deep pit of despair? But then came the fear: what if he was simply playing a game, using their vulnerabilities once more? "Look around," she urged as a wave of frustration washed over her. "Every face in this room has been touched by your decisions. You can't just wave a magic wand and expect us to forget." His gaze locked onto hers, and she felt a spark of understanding pass between them. "I don't want you to forget," he confessed. "I want you to remember as motivation for our next steps together. This isn't about forgetting the past but shaping a new future. But I need your voices, too." Rachel's breath caught. Voices. Their community spoke without a microphone through their pain, their shared stories, struggles, and now, perhaps, willingness to fight back. But could she rally them, too? She turned back to the crowd, and as if she were stretching out a hand, she asked, "What do you all think? Can we take that leap together?" Murmurs followed, carrying whispers of hope tinged with skepticism. Then, a figure rose in the back: Mrs. Carter, who had led the fight against eviction 3 years ago. Her face was a mix of lines bearing witness to her struggles and an unwavering spirit that still shone bright. "There is something about speaking to the truth," she said, her voice filled with slow, deliberate passion. "If we can find it in ourselves to reevaluate what's on the table, then perhaps it's worth a shot. But this man must know he has to walk with us, not ahead of us." The crowd buzzed. Could they band together, share their doubts and hopes, and forge a path that led beyond this painful history? Rachel felt a surge of resilience rising within her, and as the possibilities melded with a flicker of hope, she made her decision. If we're willing to give him a chance, we have to do it as one. Let us form a committee, she suggested, her voice gaining strength. Let us make sure our collective voices shape whatever this plan may be. The energy in the room shifted, finally igniting excitement rather than apprehension. But even as the crowd began to rally behind her words, Rachel couldn't shake the thought that uncertainty still loomed around them. Could they trust this man enough to let him help guide their healing process, or would they find themselves lost again on the road to reparation? As the murmurs grew louder and agreement filled the air, Rachel sensed the line between change and chaos remained razor-thin. How far were they really willing to go for the sake of possibility? Rachel looked across the room, a mix of anticipation and fear swirling within her. The crowd was no longer just a mass of faces, they were an entity alive with energy. She could feel the weight of their collective history resting on her shoulders as they began to nod, slowly at first, then with palpable eagerness. "All right," Mrs. Carter said, her voice steadying the moment. "Who is willing to step up for this committee? Who believes in change?" Hands started to rise, tentatively at first, then bolstered by the spirit of solidarity. Each hand extended the bridge of faith. Rachel's own heart quickened. This wasn't just about the man at the front anymore. It was about them, about the community reclaiming its agency. They began to get organized right there in the hall, people swapping contact information, forming small groups and brainstorming ideas. What policies needed to change? What safeguards could be implemented to protect their interests? Rachel tried to write everything down, the notes spilling over with the excitement of newfound possibility. But in the back of her mind, doubt lingered like a whisper in the wind. What if the man's intentions were not what they appeared? She stole glances his way occasionally, sensing the vulnerability in his expression. He stood quietly, absorbing the room's transformation, still present but not commanding. Was he a genuine ally, or merely a clever manipulator? The buzzing around her was punctuated with laughter, voices spiraling together harmoniously, and Rachel felt warmth begin to replace the anxiety that had clung to her. She caught a smile from Mrs. Carter, a knowing look that said they were in this together, no matter the outcome. Hours slipped by as they mapped out their vision for the future. Rachel became absorbed in the conversations, fueled by passionate debates, heartfelt statements, and a tangible determination to seek justice. She was effervescent, convinced they were on the edge of something monumental, but as the night wore on, her resolve faced the harsh glow of reality. In the midst of planning and optimism, there was a stillness that settled in her gut. Would they really hold their new ally accountable? Could they forge a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect, or would her nightmare resurface amidst crumbling trust? Just as Rachel was lost in thought, the man stepped forward again. "I want to support this effort you're starting," he said, his voice strong yet measured. "I'll provide whatever resources you need. I want to share the process with the community, not steer it blindly. You'll have all the means to keep me in check." A wave of murmurs washed over the crowd, but Rachel could see hesitation in some faces. "Promises are just words without action," someone challenged, cutting through the hopeful air. "Exactly," she jumped in, her heart pounding. "How can we truly gauge if he is sincere? How do we protect ourselves against betrayal?" "Let us set benchmarks," Mrs. Carter suggested, her wisdom guiding the new conversation. "We can demand regular updates, transparency. If we step into this, we do it with our eyes wide open." And just like that, the crowd nodded loudly in agreement. Rachel felt a tingle of empowerment at the thought of building checks not just for trust, but for accountability, strength and unity. As discussions continued into the night, Rachel found herself thinking about the magnitude of the risk they were taking. Was the simple act of trusting enough? What if they unlocked a door only to find it led to a darker alleyway? Doubts crept slowly back into her mind, but as she looked at the people around her, neighbors, friends, survivors, the determination on their faces began to drown out her fears. Then a thought struck Rachel, a realization that perhaps her own voice, her own story, had the power to forge deeper connections and inspire others. She set her chin with newfound resolve. Maybe her truth could carry weight, and with that truth, they could demand real change. "Can we hear from each person on this committee?" Rachel proposed, her voice rising above the clamor. "Let us share why we're here." And as one by one the stories began to unfold, Rachel could feel the turning of a tide. Each narrative added threads to their tapestry of hope, but just as the deeper truths started to emerge, a door creaked open at the front of the hall, an unexpected interruption sending shivers through the room. What was coming next? Rachel's heart skipped a beat, curious and apprehensive. Would this new arrival derail their momentum? Or might it unveil opportunities and revelations none of them were prepared for? As the door creaked fully open, a new figure stepped into the light, a woman mid-40s, face drawn but fiery in her intention. It was none other than the town's well-known journalist, Julia Roberts. Her presence electrified the atmosphere. "Rachel," Julia said, breathless, but determined. "I need to speak with you all about the stories I've uncovered. Your fight, it's bigger than Maplewood. It could resonate across the country." Rachel blinked, caught off guard. The room buzzed with intrigue. "What do you mean?" she asked, suddenly feeling a sense of urgency. With a glance around, Julia took a breath. "I've been reporting on banks and their exploitation of vulnerable communities in our region. Rachel, your situation isn't unique. It's happening everywhere, and people are desperate for leaders like you to expose the corrupt practices." The crowd leaned in, the words wrapping around them like a blanket of newfound hope. "Do you think we can help them?" Rachel asked, her heart flickering with possibilities. Julia nodded, earnestness clear in her eyes. "Yes. With your story at the forefront, we can rally others. Accountability on a larger scale. Think of what we can achieve in unison." A surge of energy coursed through Rachel. Her mind raced with images of standing alongside families across the country, breaking the chains of injustice. The feeling in her chest ignited. "We need to use social media, petitions, and yes, even rally in public spaces." Julia continued, her enthusiasm infectious. "You have a voice that people want to hear, Rachel. Together, we can amplify your fight into a movement." Rachel's heart was pounding. This was it. Not only for her but for everyone who felt unheard. "What do we need to do?" she exclaimed, excitement edging over anxiety. Julia broke it down as the crowd listened intently. Ideas flew around the room, creating a social media campaign, reaching out to advocacy groups, and gathering testimonies from others affected by similar injustices. The blood pulsed hot with determination. They built momentum in a whirlwind of connections and strategies. "Let us form a press conference," Julia suggested. "Bring the local media in. We need a spotlight on this for it to matter on a larger scale." Support surged in the room, a chorus of agreement echoing between friends and strangers alike. But for just a moment, Rachel searched the crowd for the man who had confessed regret. He stood still, watching their growing excitement with a hint of concern. "Do you want in on this?" Rachel called to him, gaze steady. "If we stand for justice, we want to know you're with us." He hesitated, the weight of trust etched across his face. "I can share my contacts, but only if you're sure this is the right path," he replied earnestly. "You need to control your story, your truth must remain at the forefront." With determination, Rachel met his gaze. "Absolutely. We'll pursue justice, but we'll do it together, on our terms." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voice strong, filled with empowerment. As conversations grew, and excitement thrived in the air, Rachel felt a wave of energy overwhelming all doubt. This was it, they were on the brink of transformation. They were not only fighting for themselves but for a larger community, for truth and fairness, and against a system that had silenced too many for too long. Hours passed as they forged plans. Rachel stood taller, knowing this fight wasn't hers alone anymore. There was a community building around her, connected by truths once buried. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden light through the windows, Rachel felt her heart swell with pride and hope. She turned and caught her mother's gaze, a deep understanding passing between them. They had weathered their share of storms, but today, they found their footing amidst the chaos. The battle ahead would be tough, but it felt lighter somehow. Families banding together, Rachel stated, folding her arms with a radiant smile. This is just the beginning. The crowd cheered again, voices united in resilience and determination. Rachel could feel it, a collective heartbeat, pulsing with a shared purpose. Right there, in that community center, they were building something real, a force that could not be ignored. As the meeting wrapped up, Rachel glanced around, eyes catching on smiling faces and clenched fists ready to take a stand. The man from the bank stood with them, uncertainty still laced through his body but also a hint of hope. "Let us share our plans with Maplewood," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "We're all in this together." As conversations flowed into the night, Rachel knew that whatever came next wouldn't be easy. But they faced it as one, a family bound by truth, a community ready for change. The journey would be tough, but she was no longer afraid. Each voice mattered, and together, they would forge a path toward the justice they deserved. This was the dawn of their transformation, their chance to rise from ashes to thrive. Everyone in that room felt it deep in their hearts, a collective determination shining brilliantly, and Rachel, standing tall and unwavering, knew this was only the beginning. Now, as you reflect on Rachel's inspiring journey, don't sit quietly on the sidelines. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will lift your spirits and ignite your passions. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this transformative journey. Comment with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Your thoughts matter, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Let's spread the message of strength, unity, and unstoppable change.